Hey dear, Zimzy here, and I know I've been a little MIA lately, and that's because I've been reading really long books that are on the chunky side, so they take longer to get through. And two, I've been getting my feet back into creative writing, which is something I am truly passionate about. And I submitted some short stories to anthologies. I'm in limbo waiting to see if they've been accepted, but if anything comes of that, I'll let you know if I have anything that's going to be published. Okay, but moving on to the actual book reviews, and I'm happy to say that two of these I gave 5 stars and blew me away, but let's start with maybe some that I was lukewarm about. Starting off with a book that has necromancy and the undead, which is like almost always like an instant buy, an instant read for me. That's my jam. And the book I'm talking about is The Daughter of Redwinter by Ed McDonald. The story centers around a teenager named Rain who has the grave sight, meaning she can see and talk to the dead. However, this is a deeply feared ability, and it's an instant death sentence if people find out about it, so she mostly keeps to herself. However, she also has a good heart, so one day she finds this injured woman. She rescues her, not knowing that she is a thief who stole a dangerous magical artifact, and its owners come and arrest her and take her to this monastery fortress for questioning, and she gets tied up into this conspiracy. I'm really conflicted about this story because I really adore Rain as a character. She's someone who's gone through a lot of abuse from her mother and her previous lover, and I love her character development in this story. However, what I don't like is some of the narrative decisions. They just kind of baffled me because I love the beginning and I love the end. We get some undead action. However, it's the middle when she's at the Citadel. Basically, nothing important happens to move forward the main plot. She becomes a servant, and we don't get really a sense of danger or conflict or tension. There's basically just relationship drama of who has a crush on who, and it just felt so petty to me. And I was like, I want the undead. I want action. I want something. And it was just a really odd narrative choice, in my opinion. Okay, next is a book that I unfortunately did not have a good time with. It was a pain to get through, and that is The First Binding by R.R. Virdi. The story centers around a legendary traveling storyteller bard who's been on all of these adventures, and he's known as a princess killer. So he shows up at this tavern one day and he decides to tell them his life story and set the record straight. I see a lot of comparisons with The Name of the Wind with this book, and yes, it reminded me a little bit too closely of The Name of the Wind. In fact, style-wise, structural-wise, and plot-wise, it felt like someone was trying to emulate The Name of the Wind without finding their own unique style and their own story to tell. Like, even with the opening page, I felt like it was a little bit too close to the 3 types of silences discussed in the opening of The Name of the Wind. I can't speak for the author's intent, but it almost felt like that one meme, like, I'm going to copy your homework and change it just a little bit, but I do wish that the author took more of his own creative liberties. Also, what really rubbed me the wrong way was how sexist Ari, the main character, and our narrator is. Like, constantly, especially in the beginning of the story, he's saying, like, her, how all stories begin. Oh, it's always her that's the cause of trouble. And I understand that he's jaded, he's heartbroken because of the princess, but I would think he'd be, like, more like, okay, I'm not ready for a relationship, and yet he complains that women are like the source of his life's woes. while hitting on them. What are you doing, dude? And at one point, he neighs at a woman to try and seduce her. And I don't use this word often, but this book made me cringe. Hopefully, the character writing will get better as the series progresses, and Ari will do some soul searching. But we'll see. Okay, grumpy, salty time over. Moving on to my 5-star book, starting with The Flames of Mira by Clay Harmon. And this book is set in this really cool volcanic ice city called Mira, and it centers around a slave named Ig, who is magically bound to carry out executions, and as civil unrest increases in the city, he's forced to kill more and more people, which starts weighing on his conscience. So he starts trying to figure out a way to free himself while not dying in the process. And one of the things I loved most about this book was its magic system. So magic users are called elementals, and they're bound to a periodic element, so like iron or potassium, and they can control and manipulate that said element. And Ig is special because he can control multiple elements. We find out why later, but that's a spoiler, and I'll let you find that out yourself. But he can control lava, and he can use electromagnetism. So there's these really awesome, like, Magneto, X-Men, Mistborn kind of style fights where he's like propelling through the air and throwing lava at people, which is painful. So the fight scenes are really cool in this one. And as the story progresses, we start veering more and more into cosmic horror territory, which makes me very happy. This is an awesome genre bending book. And just out of curiosity, I kind of went on the author's Twitter to see if he mentions Lovecraft. And it turns out, I believe this book was originally a NaNoWriMo project. And under like the tropes, or like, like the little summary plot points for selling your book, it mentions Lovecraftian monsters. So my great one radar was right. Okay, next we have a book that reminded me what it's truly like to sink into a great story, and that is Babel by R.F. Kuang. And this story centers around Robin, who is a biracial orphan who is adopted by this Englishman and taken to London. He starts training to become a translator because he is native in Cantonese. And he enters into Oxford, which is dubbed also Babel, and he starts studying to become basically a translator for the Empire. However, he becomes conflicted between his two identities, and he's also approached by a shadowy organization who asks him to start stealing silver from Babel for them. And this book brilliantly explores the effects of British imperialism and the power of language, because in this book, language is literally a magical power. If you truly understand a language fully and the meaning of a word, you can manifest what it means. So as like Oxford is deliberately like trying to hoard all these languages, they get more abilities. And I do want to point out that Kuang herself is a translator, so this book is very oriented around discussing the act of translation, as well as what makes a good translation. And if you aren't as interested in languages, this book might not be up your alley, but I personally found the subject matter really interesting. Oh, and before I wrap up this video, there's one other book I want to mention, and that is Ymir by Larson, and it centers around Yorick, who is a company man who is shipped back to his home planet of Ymir to try to hunt down these bioengineered alien robots that are stalking and hunting miners. However, in the mines, he comes across his estranged brother, and there is a lot of bad blood between the two of them. However, his brother asks him to help him with an insurrection. So Yorick is stuck in between a rock and a hard place because his brother would probably kill him if he refuses, and the company, if they find out that he's a traitor, would kill him too. And there is a bunch of cool technology I really liked in this book. It kind of reminded me of altered carbon. Like when miners are killed and they are legally dead, they're put in like this stasis fluid, and then they're resurrected with like all these different fluids, and it's kind of Frankensteinian, and it was gross to read, but kind of cool at the same time. I think at the heart of this story is a tale about two estranged brothers, and we get gradual flashbacks between them, and that's what made the story so compelling for me. All right, those are all the fantasy and sci fi books I've read recently, and I should have another video soon about all the horror books I've read this month, so stay tuned for that. And if you've read any good or bad or lukewarm meh books, let me know down in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you later.